The Russian parliament is discussing amendments to its restrictive law on its LGBTQ plus communities. If passed, it will prohibit what it calls the promotion of non-traditional sexual orientations. This has been banned for under 18s since 2013, but the changes would make this illegal for all ages.
These protesters are fighting for equal rights in Russia. But demonstrations for LGBTQ rights here are often brutally halted by authorities. One of the instruments of repression over the past decade has been the so-called gay propaganda law introduced in 2013. Authorities say it's needed to prohibit the promotion of what they call non-traditional sexual values to children. Now Russia is set to pass new legislation, further restricting the LGBTQ community by expanding the law to adults as well.
We don't live in a democratic state. I think that lawmakers in the Duma are trying to convey the impression that they curry favor with this oppressive machine. And the victims of this machine are the most vulnerable ones, LGBTQ plus people.
The new law that Russia's lower house of parliament, the State Duma, is debating will effectively forbid any positive references to LGBTQ topics in popular media and on the internet. Activists fear the new law is a further step towards state-sponsored discrimination and repression, and that it will leave the LGBTQ community even more stigmatized in Russian society.
Well, DW's Moscow office was closed down, but our Russia coverage continues from the Latvian capital, Riga. And DW's Yuri Rashetto joins us from there. Yuri, great to see you. So what exactly does this mean for the LGBTQ plus community in real terms in Russia?
Well, Pablo, we are talking about changing the existing information and media law. Soon it will be prohibited to positively refer to same-sex relationships, transgender and transsexual topics on social media and really in all publications, feature films and on television as well. Russian lawmakers call anything to do with LGBTQ non-traditional sexual relationships or preferences. And since any statement commenting on LGBTQ issues that is not critical could be interpreted as positive, any public mention of LGBTQ issues in Russia could soon be punishable. So this seems to be a really homophobic law.
Why is this being pushed right now, Yuri, considering Russia's struggle with its invasion in Ukraine?
Well, look, as always, there is an official version and there are various, let's say, other interpretations. I find both seem logical from the Russian perspective. The official statement refers directly to the war in Ukraine, which is still being called in Russia especially a special military operation. And this so-called military operation even gave new meaning to the proposed law. According to the Russian Duma, the Russian parliament, the military operation doesn't only take place on the battlefield, it's said, but also in the minds and souls of the people. And those minds and souls of the Russian people are obviously in danger, according to Russian politicians. But the question is really, why is this happening now? And here comes the other, let's say, unofficial version. I think that the Russian government wants just to distract from other very pressing issues, for example, Moscow's military problems in Ukraine. No one knows how much longer the Russian army can hold out in Kherson, for example, in Ukraine, and the debate about an LGBTQ law would present a welcome distraction from this problem.
Yuri, is there much support, as in is there broad support for laws like this one that we're talking about? And is it possible that we could even see protests?
Well, look, even if it sounds harsh, Russian society has completely different problems at the moment, above all the mobilization, which many people are still very, very afraid of. And while it sounds harsh for us, the Russian LGBTQ community has become accustomed to state-sponsored homophobia over the past 20 years. And while there is no law directly criminalizing homosexual relationships as such, Russia's LGBTQ community must be concerned about their safety. In this respect, the law doesn't change anything fundamentally, but it changes an already difficult situation for the world. And I don't expect any protests. Russians are intimidated, restricted in their freedom of expression, and since the beginning of the mobilization, also disoriented.
Thanks, Yuri. DW's Yuri Rashetto in the Latvian capital, Riga.